What's up guys, it's Dono. In this video I'm going to be talking about how to write punchlines, and this is a topic that I have covered in the past but I haven't covered it for a long time, so I'm going to try to do it in a little bit different way because a lot of people have been asking for it. Now, there is a distinction between just normal punchlines and punchlines for battles. For this video I'm just going to be talking about general punchlines. So when you talk about what a punchline is, a really good comparison is to comedy, right? Because in comedy, you do a lot of the same things. But let's start with a punchline. So the definition of what a punchline is basically it's a line or an idea that has a lot of impact. So that's a really broad definition. There's a lot of different ways that you can get to a punchline, but basically it has to have impact. So a lot of times to get there, you need to do something innovative or clever or something that's a little bit off the wall, right? Something that sticks out. Now there's a couple different ways to do this, and if we go back to comedy, it's a great comparison. So you've got wordplay, right, which is the most common way to make a punchline, and then also if you're thinking in terms of comedy, it doesn't matter if it's a one-liner, right? You can have a one-liner with like the joke at the end or the punchline at the end, or you can have these really long, intricate storylines or build-ups that end with one big haymaker. Either way, the punchline is the part that has the impact. It's the part that makes the crowd go, ooh, ah. So the couple different things you can do is like some wordplay. You can do a long, extended metaphor with like an interesting twist at the end. You can just do some really powerful life truths type stuff. The thing that's tricky about punchlines is it's always a little bit hard to know exactly what's going to stand out and resonate with people. But with some practice, you can get better at crafting these types of things. Now, one of the most approachable ways to start writing punchlines is through wordplay. So basically, you'll want to start with something clever or your punchline, right? You start with the end and then build the build-up afterwards. The reason that you do this is because it's almost impossible to just start a build-up and then have a punchline magically fall out of the air, right? You need to have that end point put together first because it's the harder component, and then build the build-up around that. So let me just give you an example of how you could build up a punchline. So we're going to take this wordplay route, and I'm just going to pick current as the word that I'm going to use. And we're going to try to build a punchline around the word current using the wordplay of current. And current can mean either, the way that water's moving and pulling things, or it can mean something that's happened recently or happening now. So with both of those definitions in mind, we can come up with something like this. I only exist in the current like the ocean is taking me. Right? So the idea being that I only exist in the present, but we also compare it to like the ocean is taking you or pulling you out to sea. So now we need to add a setup that incorporates that punchline and makes it a little bit stronger. To do that, we're going to add in a little bit more language that amps up how much current stands out in the form of present moment. So we've got at 83, future and past won't be shaking me because I exist in the current like the ocean's taking me. Now, another part of punchlines is delivering them in a way that they actually stand out. A lot of beginners do this delivery in the same way as the rest of their verse, and it's all just kind of in this same pattern, and then the punchline doesn't stand out and it's easy to miss. Not delivering your punchline in a way that stands out can turn a really good punchline that gets a lot of attention into one that really no one notices at all. So the way that you pace things out is really important. A lot of times what people do is emphasize the wordplay so that the listener has more time to break it down, as well as it pulls their attention towards it and makes it stand out more. Let me give you a quick example. At 83, future and past won't be shaking me because I exist in the current like the ocean's taking me. So in that example, it's kind of a little bit harder to hear where the punchline is, and it doesn't stand out as much. But compared to something like this, at 83, future and past won't be shaking me because I exist in the current like the ocean's taking me. So I slowed it down a little bit to let listeners really focus on that point and make it stand out even more. Now, you don't always have to do this when writing a punchline, but just being aware of how you're delivering it and whether or not the actual punch stands out is something that can really make a huge difference in how your punchlines come across. Now, one of the keys to creating good punchlines is to have something clever or unique that stands out but isn't so complex that the listener can't really understand it. This is something that I had a hard time with for quite a while, but let me give you an example using current. If you in the flow of the ocean, my current streak will keep you beat. So here my punchline is confusing, nothing really stands out. Yeah, some of the words seem related, but not in a way that's very clear. There's not enough of a setup and not nearly enough of a punch. The word plays don't really make sense. Why would they be in the flow of the ocean? Do ocean currents streak? What does that mean? There's a lot of stuff to avoid in this punchline. So hopefully that shows you a little bit how to build out more clear punchlines. One last note that I want to iterate on is just that this is a little different than battle punchlines. In a battle, you really have to attack your opponent. In general punchlines, you just have to have something that stands out. I've covered battle punchlines before, but basically, the difference is if you attack your opponent or just stand out. A lot of people that are good at writing general punchlines try to get into battles and use the same style, but since they're not attacking their opponent, they lose a lot of their edge. Hopefully that helps you figure out a couple ways to start writing more punchlines. If you're having a hard time getting into it, I would recommend just learning more wordplay and again using comedy as kind of a parallel because there's a lot of things that they do that just naturally mirror what you need to do to create really strong punchlines. That's all I've got for this video, but if you want to check it out, I've got a full 30-day course that I'll put down in the box below. I've also got a website where you can get some more resources, rapbetter.com, and if you have any questions, comments, topics you want me to cover, throw them down in the box below. I will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos, and if you have any questions, comments, or topics you want me to cover, leave them down in the box below and I'll get to them as soon as possible. See you next time.